I think the key word there is as fast as we want. How reasonable is it to set that expectation as quickly? How reasonable is it to defer that expectation further down the line? And what is the comparative experience by which we say that 4 years is too long or too short to see results? I think we must be very careful about the what somebody has called the tyranny of instant results. I think that privatization has brought value to the sector. It is not without its challenges. And like every policy, whether public or private, you will have challenges. And our responsibility is to understand what those challenges are and respond to them. And we are responding. And that is why we have developed the private power sector recovery program, which is the policies, actions, decisions that recognize the gaps in the privatization and the challenges inherent in them that we will then implement to give it the results that people expect to see. I won't say that monies have been given to the discos, and I think that we should be very careful how we state things that we don't understand. And I would rather refrain from speaking about what I don't understand than to say the wrong thing, or as I call it, to speak bombastically. First of all, let me make this point. We are a government to enable private sector to do its work. The banks were private, were they not? When they had bad loans, who took over the loans? AMCON. Who is AMCON? Now, is the impact of good banks more important than the impact of regular power? Well, if AMCON is homegrown, we also saw the American stimulus package in the aftermath of America's recession in 2008, where government intervened in the auto industry, in the banking industry, and the finance to revive their economy. So, as a matter of principle, first of all, let us say that the fact that something is private doesn't mean that government can't support it. That is why government exists. Government sets up free programs in order to empower life. That's what government exists for. Individuals who benefit from free, are they not private? So let's just get this concept. But that said, let me also say that even countries like India, I can tell you for a fact, I haven't checked out the other countries who have privatized, are still intervening by way of some subsidy in the electricity sector. I can tell you that for a fact. But are we providing subsidy currently? No, we are not. Now let me speak to that. There is a loan created before this administration was brought in. The Nigerian Electricity Sector Fund by Central Bank. What it did was to provide funding support, loan, not grant, to the discos and the operators. If you want it, come and take. Just like Central Bank is doing with Agric. You can argue, and maybe I will concede, that because the loan is below the rate of commercial bank, there's some subsidy there, but it's not a grant. There is 701 billion naira payment assurance guarantee. People have misunderstood it, but it is not a grant, neither is it a dash. It is a loan by government to a government-owned company, MBET. MBET is a 100% government-owned company. When privatization was being set up, MBET was created to buy bulk power. So MBET has a contract with each GENCO called a power purchase agreement. I will pay for all the power you put on the grid under these terms and conditions. Because MBET is a 100% owned government company, it means actually that it is government that signed that contract to pay. So if MBET owes, okay, it's government that owes. Now, the GENCOs owe the gas companies for the power they produce. The gas companies owe their banks for the financing they use to produce the gas. The debt is in the power sector, is owned by government. Unless government wants to create an economic crisis for itself, a debt owed in power sector will cascade to gas sector, will spiral into the banking sector, and then spiral into the open market. We didn't create that structure. We inherited it, and we advised government, pay your debt. Take over this debt and ensure that the GENCOs are paid. You know what happened immediately we passed that payment assurance guarantee? Power started coming back onto the grid. I remember one company called me 1 week after we announced that policy that, oh, we have a 119 megawatt plant we want to commission. You don't build a 119 megawatt plant in 1 week. It meant that it was already there. They just closed it down because they were not sure they were going to get paid. That's what the 701 billion is for. Now, the power that MBET buys from those GENCOs under the PPA, it sells to the DISCOs under a vesting contract. The DISCOs haven't been able to fully pay. But the expectation was that MBET will pay the GENCOs from what it collects from the DISCOs. But the fact that MBET hasn't received his money is no defense to the claim of the GENCOs to say, bring my money. So MBET is paying his debt. It will now pursue the DISCOs to collect. But in between that, it has to keep power on the grid. So that's why, because of that policy, power production has climbed from that first GENCO. As at the 4th of September, we had available 6,619 megawatt available for the grid. We had 6,700 megawatt transmission capacity. So we could essentially transport what we were producing. But we can't put 6,000 megawatt on the grid because now we have a new problem. Our capacity has surpassed the distribution capacity. They can only take about 4,000. As at 12th September, available power for the grid hit 7,001 megawatt, all-time high, but we couldn't put it on the grid. So you see it's increasing, the policy is working. The available power on the grid on that same day was 4,006. So it means that we now have to go and do a lot of work at the DISCO end to put all of that power on the grid. And I think that sets the entire picture for you. Power sector recovery program is the series of policies, actions, decisions that we have to take to help the privatization reach its peak. Let's put it that way. So debts have to be paid to keep liquidity in the system. So the 701 billion program is part of the power sector recovery program. Eligible customer is part of the power sector recovery program. Whatever you can do to make privatization work is part of the power sector recovery program. DISCOs must deliver power to their consumers. So they must expand their distribution assets. That's what eligible customer is about. What is it really? I've said that discos can't take all the power that is available. The reason is that they have distribution equipment inadequacy. Transformers are either old, lines are old, ring mains units, conductors, and all of those things that they use to carry on their business are either not there or they're aging and they don't have the money. Now, there are a few heavy-duty consumers who are saying, look, listen, I want to build this distribution outlet because it's cheaper than me running on diesel. The law says that the minister can approve those kind of things. That is what I have done. For it to now be operational, NEC, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, must prescribe regulations under which eligible customers define which classes of people will be eligible, under what conditions they will work, because some of them, and invariably it's hard to really operate it without the collaboration of the discos. But the law authorizes us to do that. So everything that would improve power supply is part of the power sector recovery program. There are certain classes of contracts really that certain types of contractors haven't demonstrated the capacity to deal with. As a matter of law, it is difficult, if not impossible, for you to secure a contract without being a Nigerian registered company. And what defines the nationality of a company is the law under which it is registered. That's the way I know it, and who the shareholders are. So once it is a company registered under Nigerian law in the Corporate Affairs Commission, technically for me, it ticks the boxes for Nigerian company. Who are the shareholders? Are there Nigerians on the board? It ticks the boxes. Now, look, listen. Even in other professions, there are categories of competence. In my own profession, for example, there are certain cases that you know that you are better served by getting a very, very senior member of the profession. Sometimes even a senior advocate. In medicine, there are certain cases too that you know that this is a matter solely for a specialist or a consultant. And it cannot be different. Not just any engineer can do any certain thing. And there are certain classes of work that you know that look, you need certain specialized equipment to be able to do them. And some people just don't have them. So, because of the quality of work that we are concerned about, certain thresholds of competence are set to be able to sift those who are able to do it from those who will just come and join the gang. Yeah, the mini-grid regulation, again, it's part of the power sector recovery program. What the mini-grids do on both sides first is it helps to open up opportunities for self-generation and self-distribution of power within an existing license area. So we categorize the grid as 1 megawatt and below. Now let me just try and define 1 megawatt for us. On the average, 1 megawatt should serve at least 200 homes. On the average, if not more. So that's a lot of power. And we are saying people can do that on their own, but they need a license. If you are 100 kilowatts, over 100 kilowatts, but up to 1 megawatt, you need to be licensed by NEC. If you are below 100 kilowatts, you don't need a license. But register with us so that we know that you are there. So on the 11th of September, I think commissioned a solar mini grid pursuant to this thing that was going to power 145 households. and 5 businesses. So the policy is already working. So those people are not suffering about distribution, about all of those things anymore, which is the new problem we now have, because we can now produce the power. So all of these are part of the power sector recovery program. Hopefully, as the mini grids come on, we expect that somewhere down the line, even the discos will either buy power from them or buy them out and take ownership. Well, again, that's why we have a standards organization. That's why we have a consumer protection council, and so on and so forth. That's why we have customs at the border, and so on and so forth. And we are trying as much as possible to ensure that meters are produced locally rather than imported, so that Nigerians can really benefit from the value chain of meter production, meter installation, which we didn't really benefit from when we were importing phones into the country. So it's for everybody to play their part. It takes more than one person to successfully counterfeit something. People must also develop an appetite for counterfeit products before there's a market for it. So all of us must just insist that we want the real thing and we will not compromise quality. Estimated billing is a product of many, many contributory factors. People steal energy. The supplier of the energy, as I've told you, the disco who brings the energy is owing embed for the energy. So he's a retailer. He has to collect the money and go and give the manufacturer of the power, say, take your money. Now, anytime he comes short, he gets aggressive, understandably. Understandably, it's like you being a distributor of water and you collect the water from the manufacturer of water in advance. Then somebody steals 4 bottles. You are short. You must find a way to collect. That's the sense in which people... Now, even people with prepaid meters are bypassing those meters. So we must all stop that. And that's why I advocated that we must keep an eye on one another in such a way that we can report those who are stealing energy and sort of whistle blow against them. Because ultimately, sometimes what the discos then do is to say, well, because I don't know who did what, I know how much energy I sent to this area, I can see that there are 10 houses there. I will just divide it equally and bill everybody that I can see. So you're probably paying for somebody's theft. That's the sense. But in order to also eliminate it is installation of meters, which we must do more of, as I've said. But even now, where meters are installed, we must stop seeking to bypass them. That's another angle to it. Then, on our part, we are developing regulations and laws that are going to make it very, very expensive for people to bypass their meters and cheaper to pay, because the sanctions will be very severe once we catch you. It's interesting. There's a lot of literature about how the human civilization itself has evolved, and it's very, very interesting that our first source of energy was wood. And in order to, but wood was very slow to heat. It created all sorts of pollution. It still does. We moved to coal. Coal had more boiling capacity. It was good during the industrial age. It helped the welders and the blacksmiths to deliver more power to their furnaces. But it was the movement to coal that actually saved the forests. But at that time, there were no lubricants. It's very interesting literature that I think people should read. And people were using animal fat and whale oil for lubrication, for sea and all of that. And that's what really led to the prolific production of petroleum, from which you now get gas. Now, petroleum then saved the whales because there was massive whaling at the time. But the point to simply make is that gas is prolific for quick deployment of power. So we started a gas project last year in our farm in Port Harcourt. We should finish it this year. It takes longer to build coal. It takes longer to build hydro. It's quicker to build solar. Okay? But we didn't focus on solar until recently. Okay? When we launched the energy mix at our council on power last year in Kaduna, and when everybody starts talking about it, we haven't spoken this consciously and this visibly about power. And if you recall too, this was what happened when we wanted telephones. It became a daily issue. And I think that's perhaps the Nigerian way. It's not the best way, but it works. When we focus our energy on something, we get it done. So everybody's now talking, let's go solar. And that's why you're having mini grid regulations. I've told you about a solar plant. So more are coming. I know companies now, petrol filling stations like Total, they are retrofitting all their filling stations. They are not using regular power again. They're putting their solar on top of their canopies. I know banks now who are already using solar for their cash points. So we are on our way to that energy mix. The power that I told you is being produced now, that we can put 7,000 megawatt on the grid. It's not because of gas alone. It's a combination of gas and solar in the rainy season. So this is the first time in a long time that we have been able to harness our gas and harness our hydro simultaneously. Before, it's either the gas pipelines would have been out, like in 2016 when all the pipes were blown. The piece that we have in Niger Delta, we repaired the gas, so it's coincided with the rainy season. So by December, February, when the rains are going, if our solar deployment succeeds, we should be able to then switch and support the receding water with the sun and still keep the gas on. So most countries have a combination of coal, gas, nuclear, hydro, and then renewable. The renewable components are still very small. But we're on our way now. It inspires me. Those who encourage me inspire me. Those who criticize me challenge me. And the cynics just give me a lot of fuel and energy to prove them wrong. I thank those who acknowledge that we are serving them. But as I say, whether you like it or not, you can't deny the experience that you have. And there's nothing I say that can change. If you don't have energy, you don't have energy. And I'm not pretentious to say that everybody will get energy this year. But my story is simple. It will get better day by day, week by week, month by month, and year by year. I can only speak for my own roadmap because it is a roadmap that shies away, in my view, very sensibly from the conversations and rhetorics of the past that have been largely inconsistent. X megawatt today, Y megawatt tomorrow. Your generators will disappear in 4 years' time. You will throw it. Those for me are bombastic rhetoric. They do not constitute a clear roadmap, in my view. A clear roadmap is to define the journey. And how do you define the journey? What's the problem? We don't have enough power. So let's first get more. That's incremental power. Very simple to understand. And every time we had 1 megawatt of solar, 1 kilowatt of mini grid, 1 gigawatt of gas, 1 unit of hydro, we're on that journey. Everybody can understand that. Steady power. It means that at some time we will have enough. Will the power be steady? Hopefully. But we now need to do certain things. Maintain. So that means that if we need 10, we should have 12. So that when we are doing repairs, we don't shut down. Uninterrupted power. That's you and I. We must not waste energy. We must conserve energy. What is wasted will never be enough. That's a very simple roadmap. And there are so many things embedded into it. Now, transmission, if you boost transmission here, you get incremental power. If you use energy saving bulb here, you save energy that somebody else can use. If you switch on any of the power plants I've told you, you add more power. It's very simple. Keep the public away from the technicalities. Let's leave that in the ministry. The public don't care the gigawatt, but they know light. They will tell you it's light. They won't even call it power. They won't call it energy. I have light. That's the simple thing. That's the news. So what brings that? Meters. That's what should concern the public. We should talk to them in very, very simple, clear terms so that the mystery of this thing is broken on a continuous basis. And they can say, we understand what our government is saying. We understand where our government is going. We think this makes sense. Give us something that is different that makes sense.